She says lawns are very draughty, so I thought I'd...
Did you say pack?
Yes, Miss Lizzie.
Oh, dear, I should have told you I'm not going.
Going? Does Lady Marjorie know? Mr. Hudson?
Well, nobody knows yet. You see, I only made up my mind this morning to stay in London for the weekend. You see, Rose, dear, I've been invited to a small exclusive party in Bloomsbury.
And what would a properly brought-up young lady like you be doing in a place like Bloomsbury?
A friend of mine has lodgings there. Someone I admire very much. That's where I'm going. Oh, stop looking so shocked, Rose. I've even stopped packing, too, and help me to untie this infuriating knot. Then I can show you what I brought to wear at the party.
I'll fetch the scissors.
Certainly not. I must never cut straight. You always untie it. Didn't your mother teach you that?
Nanny taught me. Well, we didn't get that many parcels to practice on this.
No, I suppose not. How unfair the world is. Oh, dear. No. One cannot waste time on these stupid conventions. Would you fetch me the scissors, Rose? Snip, snip, and it's done. I suppose one unties because one should not appear greedy as to know what's inside. It's like bread and butter before cake and always leaving something on one's plate. One must never appear to be in need, must one?
I suppose not, Miss Lizzie.
It's like kissing a gentleman and not just waiting to be kissed.
Miss Elizabeth.
I'm sorry, Rose. Just cut it. There, now off with the string. Away with the paper wrappings. Aren't you going mad with curiosity,
Do you
Rose?
mind your fingernails, Miss Lizzie?
Abracadabra, hocus pocus, etc. Shut your eyes, Rose. I'll tell you when to open them. Now. Isn't it beautiful?
Yes, miss.
It's from Roses, Rose.
Well, that don't surprise me at all. I better get on with your unpacking.
You don't like it?
Well, it's a bit bright, miss.
It's colour, Rose. Nothing has to be dreary and dingy. The world is beautiful if only we let it be. Well, look at it more carefully.
Well, material was quite nice.
There you are. I knew you'd like it. Your eyes were closed, that's all. All our eyes must be opened, Rose. All eyes shall be opened one day.
What is it?
Oh, it's a jibber.
Oh.
Women wear them in the East.
Oh.
And I'm going east on Saturday evening towards Bloomsbury, so I must dress as the natives do. Now I must try it on. Would you unlace me, Rose? Undo me. Horrible whalebones. What is the use of having a body if it's to be all twisted out of shape?
Here, you can't wear that downstairs. Lady Marjorie would have a seizure.
This time next week I shall be 21. Things are going to change. Now, come along, Rosie, my faithful handmaiden. Help me into my raiment of gold and silk.
What's the use of having a body, she says, if it's to be twisted all out of shape?
Talk of bodies, is it now? We all know what that means.
Well, I'm sure I don't know what you mean, Mrs. Bridges. We should never mention it.
Colonel's lady and Judy O'Grady.
Mrs. Bridges, I won't have you talk about Miss Lizzie like that. She's as pure as the driven snow.
It's my belief she's got a young gentleman.
That's right. I've heard her singing up and down the stairs. That means she's in love.
Rubbish. If she was, we'd all know about it. Leastways I would, because she'd have told me. It's malicious lies.
And what is malicious lies, Rose?
Nothing, Mr. Hudson. We was just talking.
Miss Elizabeth's new garment what she's bought. Arab and none too modest.
Oh, you all know my rules. I will not have gossip about members of the family.
We was just saying that Miss Elizabeth is on her way to becoming a new woman, that's all. I'd like to be made a new woman.
Nobody asked for your opinion, Doris.
New woman's right. You want to see the young madam hopping up and down them stairs? Stays? Not a bone in sight except her own.
Edward, I want to talk like that.
What would you know about stays anyway?
You'd be surprised,
Edward!
Doris.
Might I be excused from present company, please? I wish I hadn't opened my mouth. I feel quite unwell.
Oh, I don't know. Nothing but trouble. New woman. I've no time for people who want to change things. Nothing wrong with them as they are. Isn't that so, Mr. Hudson?
Oh, quite so, Mrs. Bridges. If the Almighty in his infinite wisdom has seen fit to ordain the world just so, how can we poor creatures, be we high or low, seek to change it? Consider the words of the hymn that we all joined in only last Sunday. The rich man in his castle, the poor man at his gate. God made them high or lowly and ordered their estate. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all.
You're with us down here now, Rose, not up there with them.
Is Elizabeth lunching with us today?
So she told Hudson.
Good.
I think I heard her come in a few minutes ago. Thump, thump up the stairs 3 at a time. She's too much energy.
Life and time will soon cure that.
The Scott Carey boy will be at line for the weekend. I hope she behaves herself.
I think we'd better train him to hold his breath, because I'm afraid one puff of wind would blow the Scott Carey boy right over.
Well, the fact that we're having to scrape the barrel for Elizabeth is nobody's fault but her own. She was born clever, but without the wit to disguise it, poor child. London's full of young men who turn pale when she approaches.
Really, why?
She will lecture them about the poor and the needy. And she ought to be listening to what they have to say.
She'll learn in time.
It's time that worries me. She'll be 21 next week. She'll probably die an old maid.
I don't think there's much chance of that.
Well, Richard, she doesn't know how to attract. How to walk into a room and make heads turn. Oh, my God.
Is it all right to wear this for lunch?
Well, what on earth is it?
Well, I'm trying it on. It's for a party I've been asked to.
A costume ball, what fun.
It's not supposed to be fancy dress, Father. It's the very latest thing.
What party?
Mother, I know it's all rather last minute, and I do realise it's somewhat ill-mannered of me, but this friend of mine, Henrietta Winchmore, who goes to the lectures...
Fabian Society?
Yes, well, there's a group of them, all very clever and interesting, and they've asked me to go to somebody's house on Saturday evening for a party.
But we're travelling up to Lyme for the weekend on Friday.
Well, you see, I'm not going with you. I'd rather go to this party.
No, it's out of the question, darling. Mark Scott Carey's been invited especially for you.
Well, I've never met Mr. Scott, what's his name, and even if I did, I probably wouldn't like him very much. I've got friends of my own.
Well, who are they? What sort of people?
Oh, they're all very intelligent people, Mother, who talk about things that matter.
Oh, I say.
Well, I feel elated and happy when I'm with them. And I'm very honoured to be asked into their circle. Oh, they're poets mostly, and painters, and people who write books.
They're not of your world, darling.
It's the world I want, Mother. Please. I beg you, telegraph to the Mortons at Lyme to say I'm not coming. They won't miss me. There are plenty of girls up there for Mr. Scott thing to bore to death. I'm sorry, that was unkind. Oh, please. Let me stay in London just this once.
Richard, what am I to do? Well, you're her father.
Well, she's old enough to choose her own friends.
What if they're unsuitable?
Well, sure, that's up to Elizabeth to decide.
Well?
Well, I think I'd better send a telegram.
Luncheon is served, my lady.
Oh, Hudson. Miss Elizabeth will not be travelling up to Lyme with us on Friday, after all. She's remaining in London.
Very good, sir.
I am an anarchist. But don't be frightened of me. I'm quite bombless.
You can feed him through the bars with buns and whiskey.
Save me from nut sandwiches and unfermented wine.
Mr. Bernard Shaw is living proof that a teetotal vegetarian diet produces the perfect mind.
And bicycling the perfect body. The Webbs frequently bicycle 40 miles.
Ah, you British socialists, masochists you are.
Whose harem have you robbed of that little odalisque?
Henrietta Newer. Soup kitchen somewhere in the slums. She was a mousy-looking thing when I met her before.
And now look at her. You have this effect upon people, my dear Evelyn.
She's good material. Tougher than she looks.
One for the barricades.
We'll see. She's very young.
A neophyte ready for action and unsullied pain.
Now, don't you corrupt the purditor, my dear.
Me? A bright little candle like that will be chased by all kinds of moths. Now, where have you put the whiskey?
Poetry is as natural as eating or making love. It's life. It's the spirit of gloriousness in things. Do you read poetry, Elizabeth?
Oh, yes. I admire your poems enormously, though I don't always understand them.
Well, my poetry is not to be understood by the brain. Just let it flow over you, like the great spumy waves over the body of the naked swimmer.
Poetry is derivatist. We drink in the lessons of Milton and Swinburne with our mother's milk.
Tolstoy is a fraud! If I thought Tolstoy was not sincere, then nothing would matter anymore.
Dead, my friends. They're all dead. It is we who are alive. We must lead. We must live for art. I myself live for art, especially in the evening.
In the ideal state, only the mentally and physically perfect should be allowed to procreate.
Oh, nonsense, Henrietta. My father was a dull professor of physics, married to the 7th dull daughter of an even duller Dorset baronet. And look at me. Brilliant. And 40 times as sensitive as both my parents. How are you bred, little blackbird?
Oh, Elizabeth's parents are frightening. My father's an Norfolk parson's son.
And nothing could be duller than that.
That is where free love comes in. A true friendship with a man is not possible without physical intimacy as his beloved and lover. If a woman has 12 brilliant men in her, then
Nonsense,
she can...
child. If you think you can absorb wisdom like hot soup merely by sleeping with a genius, then I should be the wisest woman in Christendom. Rodin once did my torso, but all I can remember about him are his strong hands.
Oh, Rodin, the Michelangelo of the common man.
The common man. A bourgeois cliché like your poetry.
That's unfair.
Well, you don't understand it. You said so yourself. I will teach it to you.
He will teach you all about hunger strikes and why having dirty fingernails is so important.
And that butterflies aren't much use when it comes to a fight.
Oh, what do you do when they start chucking vitriol about? Do you suppose an umbrella would be of any use? Oh, protect me, my friend, from the slings and arrows of the Philistines.
Protect you? If you can't look after yourself in the jungle, What's your lookout?
She likes to see her cubs sharpening their claws on each other.
Matilda, the test the breeders make on the young bulls.
Now, how brave is this little one?
You're mad. We're all a little mad, Elizabeth. We're special people, brought together from a wilderness. We've thrown off the stupid convictions of our forefathers. We're not shackled by cant or convention. We can be utterly frank. We're in the lead, and together we can make a new world.
Vive la révolution!
To the streets! But there are 3 million destitute in this country. Cradled in a gutter, housed in a slum, slaving in a sweater's den, and dying in a workhouse infirmary. Nobody loves them. They poison society. You won't get rid of them by giving them soup. But give them work. Give them hospitals. Give them boots. Then they will increase the wealth of the community. We must fight commercialism, not just by words, but with deeds.
And yet, behind the night, waits for the great unborn, somewhere afar, some white, tremendous daybreak.
Oh, gosh, I forgot. We can't have the hall tomorrow for Lawrence's poetry reading.
Why not?
The beastly Bible readers have bagged it first.
Well, we'll just have to have it here.
What? In this box? Never, cancel it. I need space.
Elizabeth, there's a lovely big room in your house.
Oh, but, well...
Is that possible, Elizabeth?
Well, it's evidently not a welcome suggestion.
Well, I'd have to ask my... Oh, well, they're away. Yes, yes, please come. All of you will be devious.
Bless you, my child. You are the true friend of art. To commemorate the occasion, I shall write a piece to my Lady of the Casbah, something in the style of the Rubaiyat. It will consist of 7 stanzas. Each one is exquisite and ephemeral and meaningless as the eyelash of a gnat, or the first pale flush of dawn. It will be inscribed gloriously with a lark's wing quill in red ink on golden vellum. There will be only one copy, and you and I will read it together, a stanza each evening. And then we shall die, for that is our tragedy.
Allow me to fill your glass.
Thank you.
I do find Curbridge's style so tediously over-florid, don't you? I mean, the eyelash of a gnat, really. You'd never find any of the major Russian poets resorting to an allegory like that now, would you?
Is anything the matter, Elizabeth? Is dear Stanley forcing Pushkin down with the wine?
No, I was just wondering where Lawrence was, and Evelyn. Well, they were here a moment ago.
Oh, I think they must have grown tired of our company and left us.
Oh, but I must say goodbye and thank them.
Oh, we'll see them again tomorrow afternoon at your house.
Oh, yes, of course I will.
Better not disturb them now. I expect they're communing with nature.
Perhaps you'd rather stop discussing Curbridge and talk about the major poets.
On the contrary. You see, I don't agree with you. I think Lawrence Curbridge writes and talks quite beautifully. What's the time, Rose?
Almost 11 o'clock. The church bells have started ringing.
Oh, let them ring.
What time did you return home last night, Miss Elizabeth?
I didn't return home last night, Rose. I returned home this morning at 3:30.
Miss Elizabeth, your night dress.
It's in the drawer. I've decided never to wear anything in bed again. From now on, I'm going to dedicate my life to the truth and to freedom for all mankind. Well, without our clothes, we're all alike. Rich and poor, nobleman and peasant. In our naked state, we're all equal, Rose. Do you hear me? Equal, equal, equal. We're all equal and free. Good morning, Father. Morning, Mother. Yes, I had a wonderful evening, thank you. Such fascinating people. Oh, I'm sorry to be a bit late down, but I slept in this morning, owing to an excess of rum punch and intellectual conversation. By the way, there was a most charming young man there. A poet. Such exciting eyes and a voice like a caress. When he looked at me and spoke these beautiful sonnets he's composed, I felt as though I were almost Andres. Oh, I'm sorry, Mother, but you wouldn't understand. I don't mean literally undressed. I mean, I felt somehow as if he were penetrating right through me, possessing me. I was seized and flung across the saddle of his white charger. And we galloped across the desert to the sunset of my maidenhood. Oh, my heart. Hudson, you made me jump.
I beg pardon, miss.
It's quite all right. I was just memorising some passages from a book. From a book I've been reading.
Were you requiring something, miss?
Yes, Hudson. It was simply to say that I've invited some people to call this afternoon for tea. We'll have it in here.
Very good, miss. And how many visitors would there be, miss?
6. Or possibly 7. Or even 8. I'm not quite sure.
Very good, Miss Elizabeth. And luncheon, miss?
Oh, I'm not very hungry today.
I think Mrs. Bridges has prepared some veal cutlets for you, and Edward has laid for one in the dining room.
Oh, well, then I'll have to, won't I?
You can fetch in the Brussels sprouts now, Doris, and the Yorkshire pudding.
Yes.
There will be tea in the morning room for 8 today, Edward.
8? Who's coming then? All them beggars down in Whitechapel?
None of your business who's coming.
I wouldn't put it past her.
Much more of your cheek, young man, and you'll find yourself down there queuing up for a bowl of soup. I'm glad of it.
You will serve tea as it is normally served, Edward, and Rose will assist you. Just because the master and the ladyship are away, there will be no falling off from the work in this house.
You'll be taking the afternoon off, Mr. Hudson.
Oh, not today, Mrs. Bridges. I had contemplated a wee stroll beside the Rotten Row. However, with Miss Elizabeth entertaining her friends, I shall remain on hand just to be on the safe side.
Quite right, Mr. Hudson.
The Yorkshire's nicely browned, Mrs. Bridges.
Where's Rose?
She's up doing Miss Elizabeth's room.
Hiding up after her.
At this hour?
Well, she stopped in bed till gone 11.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hudson. I couldn't get in to do Miss Lizzie's room till she was up and dressed.
Very well, Rose.
When the hounds of spring are on winter's traces, the mother of months in meadow or plain fills the shadows and windy places with lisp of leaves and ripple of rain. And the brown, bright nightingale, amorous, is half assuaged for Italus. For the Thracian ships and the foreign faces, the tongueless vigil and all the pain. Come with bows bent and with emptying of quivers, maiden most perfect, lady of light, with the noise of winds and many rivers, with a clamour of waters.
Shall I serve tea now, miss?
Bind on thy sandals, O thou most...
Is it a long poem?
Over the splendour and speed of thy feet.
Very good.
The faint east quickens, the wan west shivers, and the feet of the day and the feet of the night. Where shall we find her? How shall we sing to her? Fold our hands on her knees and cling. Oh, that man's heart were as fire and could spring to her. Fire, for the strength of the streams that spring, for the stars and the winds are unto her as raiment. Her songs of the harp player, for the risen stars and the fallen cling to her, and the southwest wind and the west wind sing. The winter's rains and ruins are over, and all the season of snows and sins, the days dividing lover and lover, the light that loses, the night that wins, and time remembered is grief forgotten, and frost are slain, and flowers begotten, and in green underwood and cover, blossom by blossom, the spring begins.
And where do I get a dozen loaves on a Sunday evening? Has anyone thought of that? Not that I don't like to see young people with good healthy appetites.
The way some of them are gobbling it down, you wouldn't think I'd had a square meal for a week.
Or a bath for a month. God, some of them. Oh,
Edward,
What are they like?
Like something out of the zoo, if you ask me.
there's one there that looks like a mangy old parrot.
Although the boy what's reading the poems is quite romantic.
Oh, can I go up and have a peek?
no, Doris, you cannot. And just look at the way you've cut that bread. You're not making crumbs for the birds, you know.
What were they reading about?
Arms holding round bodies and knees and clinging.
Give over, Edward.
I suppose they're all people Miss Elizabeth's found in the East End. She can't resist stray dogs, never could. Look at Sarah.
Oh, no, Mrs. Bridges. No working-class person would come into this house dressed like that. They'd have more respect. They're all socialists, if you ask me.
I don't know what makes Miss Lizzie mix with those sort of people. I don't really.
Tainted blood. I'll not forget the night her Aunt Alina danced naked on the lawn at Southwold. Bold as brass.
Now, up you get, Rose. You too, Edward. We're having it all day.
Well, I never used to think Miss Lizzie was like that, but I'm beginning to wonder.
Well, you just wonder if you're going to drop those plates, Miguel. Up you get now.
Nice clinging, folded round bodies. Was she stark naked, Mrs.
And
Bridges?
you just go and wash your mouth out, Doris, and then get on with doing the dirty things.
Yes, Mrs. Bridges.
Oh, I don't know. The wickedness there is in the world.
Self-supporting communities of persons indifferent to material possessions. Isn't that our aim? I mean, I feel degraded even stepping inside this mausoleum, this monument to extortion and oppression. It should be pulled down and chucked on the dust heap along with its inhabitants.
Oh, how can you be so ungrateful? After Elizabeth has invited us here and given us such wonderful eats and everything. I bet if your father was a Conservative member of Parliament, you wouldn't have the courage to ask us to the House.
If my father was that, I'd be too ashamed to show my face in this country.
I think Elizabeth is jolly brave and noble. And anyway, her parents are very nice and support all sorts of charities.
They also support the forces of evil.
I think it's jolly decent to have us here like this. It just shows how emancipated she is, doesn't it, Evelyn?
Contributions to the cause are always welcome.
The full streams feed on flower of rushes. I love that line.
Swinburne at his most blessed.
Will you make it all come alive somehow? Oh, Rose, this is Mr. Kerbridge, a poet. Pleased to meet you, sir.
Rose, is it really Rose?
Yes, sir.
No, thank you. But I am deeply, almost profoundly grateful. You give me sweet hope of spring.
Thank you very much indeed, sir.
We must make poetry together, madam.
Oh, I couldn't possibly. I'd be hopeless. I've got no ear.
I didn't mean without ear. An obscene part of the body at the best of times. No, in your father's mansion there... You're full of hate, aren't you, Evelyn? You hate Elizabeth's class and mine as profoundly as some people hate Roman Catholics. Or cough mix.
Or poverty.
Yes, I do.
Yes, well, you're not a very tolerant person, are you?
I've had to fight life every inch of the way. There's no room for tolerance in a world of privilege.
Oh, you were born privileged, with brains.
Thank you.
And with a generous body. What more do you want?
Your love.
You have my love.
But it isn't exclusive, is it?
No. No, it's not exclusive, any more so than my poetry is. I'm an artist. I communicate with the whole world. I love wheresoever my heart takes me.
She's no good to you, Laurie. She's everything you've been running away from. Ever since you left Winchester and went up to Cambridge.
She is young.
Well, she won't darn your socks or wash your shirts.
She listens to me. Oh, Evelyn, stop hating.
Well, stop making me hate.
Go upstairs, Elizabeth. I want to speak to your father alone.
I just wanted to say that I regard what I've done as totally justified, morally and politically.
Stealing from shops, Elizabeth, is not morally justifiable in any circumstances. As for any political justification for robbing a tradesman, I'd remind you and your misguided friends that a shopkeeper has as much right to his livelihood as anyone else.
There's no point in arguing with her, Marjorie. I've compensated the shopkeeper, managed by the skin of my teeth, to convince the police superintendent that Elizabeth was indulging in a childish prank. A dare. The man was extremely accommodating. He knew who I was, and the incident is closed.
It was no childish prank, Mother, I can assure you. There was a social and political point to be made, and I made it, without fear of the consequences. And if people aren't prepared to suffer for their principles, there's precious little hope for the world.
Who says so? Your friend Miss Larkin, I suppose.
Yes, Miss Larkin, who's good and clever and cares about humanity.
She's a troublemaker, Elizabeth. A bitter young woman out to destroy society because she envies other people's advantages.
Oh, that's what the Tories always say about people who fight for a better society.
She's ill-mannered, common, a thoroughly bad influence. The sooner you give up seeing her, the better for all of us.
I shall not give her up. I need her now all the more. I've proved myself to her. I've proved that I, too, put the common good above private wealth and privilege. I'm part of it now. I'm committed.
You haven't thought this out, Elizabeth. There are arguments on both sides. Let us talk about these things together, quietly, you and I.
No, I'm sorry, Father. It's too late. I've seen enough of the world to know how I feel. Oh, I know I'm letting you down. I realise that you sit in the House of Commons every day representing the old order of things. The influence of private wealth and privilege, the patronage of the many by the few. And I know that as your daughter I ought to agree with you blindly, but I can't. I can't.
Elizabeth, I will not sit here and listen to any more of this nonsense. I forbid you absolutely to see that Larkin woman or any of her associates ever again. You're to leave London immediately. You'll travel to Southwold by the first train tomorrow, where you'll remain under your grandmother's care till you come to your senses.
No. I refuse to give up Evelyn Larkin, and I refuse to leave London. You can't force me, Mother. I'm 21. You can't force me.
You will do as your mother says, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, go upstairs and tell Rose to pack your things for tomorrow.
Elizabeth? Where are you going? Elizabeth!
Richard, We were right to speak our minds.
Perfectly right, my dear. Unfortunately, she's come under stronger influences than either yours or mine.
What do you want?
I've left home, Evelyn.
That's a silly thing to do.
But it was because of you.
And sillier still.
May I come and stay? I sleep on the floor, anywhere.
No, I'm sorry, you may not.
Well, is Lawrence in? I'd like to speak to him.
No. Now, you run away and find your own lodgings. You can afford it.